Hi friends, it's Jim Alfredson, and I'm in my den of iniquity, otherwise known as the synth layer. As you can see, it's gotten kind of crazy in here, but I always come back to the Kurzweil K2700 because it's such a beast of an instrument and it does everything I need to do on a live gig. And in today's video, I wanted to focus a little bit on the controllers of the K2700, because there's a lot of them. We not only have, of course, the big beautiful ribbon controller right here on the front. We have the 16 touch sensitive, velocity sensitive pads over here on the right side. We have 9 sliders, 9 knobs, 9 buttons, all of which are fully assignable to whatever you want. And we even have a variation button here above the volume control. That's a lot of controllers. And not to be outdone, on the back we also have 2 sustain pedal inputs for momentary switches like sustain pedals. And we also have 2 continuous controller inputs for things like expression pedals and the like. So that's a lot of power and a lot of flexibility right here. But how do we utilize it? Well, that's what I want to talk about today. So let's start with kind of our basic template. When we're in program mode, I have a basic patch pulled up. It's just a nice electric piano sound. You can hear there's some phaser on that, which is really nice. And these sliders default to certain parameters, and they're actually written right underneath the knobs here. Those are the default parameters in program mode. So the very last is always reverb. Right, and we can turn the reverb completely off with the button underneath. That's great. The next slider here, number 8, is always delay. We can again turn it on and off with the button right below it. Delay time is with the knob. Very nice. And you might notice when I'm adjusting these different controllers, it shows up on the screen exactly what controller I'm using, in this case slider 8, and what it's actually doing, delay amount. So that's kind of handy, you can keep track of that. Next is some other effects. These can be variable effects based on the sound. In this particular case, we have the phaser on number 7. We can turn it off with the button again. Increase the rate with the knob. Isn't that nice? And the next one is distortion. Just adding a little bit of saturation. It's not really an overdrive sound on this particular patch. Then we have a couple other options here. This is motion control if there's any kind of modulation or any kind of CC sequencing or something. We have attack and release, and then the first ones are a couple of filters. Right? Almost every patch in your basic programs are set up the same by default. Of course, you can change this and save them however you want per patch. But that's just kind of how they're set for now. The real power comes in your ability to assign what you want on these different controllers. So for example, when we go into multi-mode, I have a multi here that I use for the song Lonely Boy by Andrew Gold, a great song. I'm not going to play the whole thing because of copyright strikes, but it starts like this. Right? Great piano sound, of course, because it's Kurzweil. Okay. So by default, when you create a multi, the first slider will be the volume for the first zone. In my case, it's the volume for the piano. And the second slider will be the volume for the second zone. And this rings true for zone 3 and 4. But once we get to zone 5, it no longer defaults to volume on those zones. And remember, we can have up to 16 zones in one multi. So people ask, how do I assign these sliders to the volume for these other zones? It's actually quite easy. We go into our edit mode. So we scroll over to the tools submenu. And here we can see where we can add a new zone, we can duplicate a zone, we can import a zone, and we can delete a zone. What we want to do is add a new zone. We want to add a 5th zone. So we just press the button for that. It says zone created. Now we have 5 zones. We can kind of see them right there. And now we can back out of this with the exit button. There's our new zone right on the screen, zone 5. And let's put a different sound on there so we can tell what it is. Let's just do a synth. How about that? So there it is. And now we can turn our piano volume down on slider 1 like I showed you, but slider 5 doesn't affect zone 5. How do we change that? Well, we scroll over to our controls submenu, go into that, and now we need to make sure we're on zone 5, right? We scroll through zones with the 2 arrow buttons right here. So we're on zone 5, and right now the controller that's selected is the variation button. We could scroll through using our alpha wheel here to find slider 5, which happens to be right there, or we can literally just press enter and hold it and then move slider 5 and it'll jump right there. That's our quick entry in order to find the controller that we want to use. Just hold enter, move any controller, it'll jump right to it. Now we're on slider 2, now we're on the ribbon controller. It does everything right there. Just hold enter, move the controller, now we're there. Okay, so we're on slider 5. Right now on zone 5, it doesn't have anything assigned to it. We want to assign a MIDI CC. MIDI CC 7 is always volume. There it is. And we just can add our parameters here. So we can do a linear curve, we can do an exponential curve, a compressed curve, whatever we want to do. Our entry position, that is where the slider is positioned when we go into the multi, when we first press the multi button and we load up that patch or that multi. That's where the entry position, that's how loud the sound is going to be when we go into the multi for the first time. Though for right now, we're just going to put it at the entry position at 110, and now, look at that. It's as simple as that. Our volume is now on slider 5. Perfect. I just happen to have a pedal set up, so what if we wanted to put it on the pedal? Well, it's the same general idea. We just go back up to our controller, and I'm going to move my pedal so I can actually play it here, and press enter and move the pedal, and there it is. And now we can assign that to MIDI CC 7 as well. You can assign multiple controllers to the same MIDI CC if you want, or the same parameter. Set our entry position, same thing, about 110 or so. And now, I'm moving the pedal. You can't see it because it's off camera, but we can fade it in and out. We can even do something that I think is a lot of fun, which on this particular patch, I'm going to back out of this and not save it. Okay, so again, this is for Lonely Boy. So there's a part of Lonely Boy, when they go to the bridge, there's these cool like synth strings that come in. And I don't want to take my hands off the keyboard in order to bring that in with a fader. So I actually have it set up so that it comes in when I press down on another sustain pedal. I have 2 sustain pedals hooked up. So I have one pedal that sustains the sound. Beautiful. And then I have another pedal that actually brings in the string sound. And as soon as I left up on it, it's not there anymore. Now the cool thing is, right now I have to hold the pedal down to bring in that sound, and if I let the pedal go, it's no longer there, but then I can't sustain, right? So what if we want to change that? Let's go into our edit, controls, there's our CC pedal 2, but just in case we can't find it, enter, press the pedal, aha, switch pedal 2, and we got to go to the right zone, which is zone 2. Right now it's set to mute the zone, and it's set to momentary. Let's set it to toggled. Now, I just have to hit it once. That means I can still use my sustain pedal. And then I just hit it again, and it turns off. Super powerful, right? And you'll notice it doesn't come in until I actually play new notes, right? So it's not here. I'm going to hit it, and it doesn't come in until I hit notes again, which is really nice. Why not create another patch from scratch? I've been working on the solo for The Cinema Show by Genesis, classic track. And for that, of course, we need organ, and we need a lead sound, right? And we also need a mellotron to come in with the organ on the second part of the solo. So first, we need to find our sounds. This is kind of how I approach it when I'm creating something like this. I'm like, okay, I need an organ sound, so let's find a good organ sound. There's one in here, I think, called Prague. That one's better. Yeah, there we go. So this is program number 158. We'll just kind of put that in our head. And then we need our Mellotron sound. So that's probably going to be from Mellotron Choir. That is probably going to be under miscellaneous. Yeah, there's a choir right there. Mixed choir. Ah, there we go. All right, so that's 1013. Our other one was 158. I'll write all this stuff down, of course. I'll see if I can remember it. And then finally, we need our synth lead sound. And Tony Banks was using, say, an ARP soloist. So we need to find something that's kind of ARP soloist-y. I'm going to go with the square lead. It's not perfect. But it's pretty close. We could go in and we could edit our own sound, and I'm going to do another video on that later. But for right now, let's just use this one. So we had 158, we had 1013, and we had 589. Okay, so let's go back to our organ sound. 158. That's it. Aha, okay. We're going to start our multi with this bad boy. So let's go into a blank multi. So here's a split default. Let's start with this one because it's going to be easy. That's 2044. We press edit. Our first layer is going to be our B3. So we go over to our organs and we select 158. Beautiful. And we need to set the range, and we can do that with holding enter and just pressing the key. So that's our bottom range down there. Our top range will be, let's see, we're in the key of A. We don't need anything over this. We're not going any higher than that. So there we go. And we need to set it up an octave because it's too low right now. But we'll do that in just a second. For our second zone, we need our Mellotron sound, which was 1013. We can go into keypad entry, 1013, kaboom. If you press this button right here, keypad entry, that means you can just type, if you remember what the patch is, you can just type it in directly rather than using the categories. We're going to set the range of that to the exact same thing that we set the organ to. Enter, boom. We're going to have to bring that up an octave too, and that's okay. And we're also going to have to do our little switching thing where we can switch it on and off with our extra sustain pedal. Third zone, let's do it. Our lead synth line, and that was, oh, I kind of forget. It was 558, I believe. 589. Ooh, that's why I sometimes write this stuff down when I'm planning it out, because you can't hold it all in your head all the time. 589, we're going to set that to start right here. Actually, right there. We're getting there. Now we just need to raise the octave of these. So we need to go into our main. We need to make sure we're on zone 1 by using our up and down arrows right here. And there's our transpose. We want to transpose up a whole octave on the organ. Pretty good. We want to set our volume to be a little bit more because when that Mellotron comes in, it's like, it's loud. So let's turn our organ down. That sounds pretty good. So the only other thing we have to do now is set it so that the Mellotron only turns on when I press the pedal. And just like we did before, we go into controls. We make sure we're on the right zone, zone 2. We hold enter and press the pedal to get right to the pedal page right here. The controller's right there. We turn on MIDI CC. We make it toggled. And our destination is 149, which is the zone mute. The on value is 127. Off value is a 0 or 1, actually. So we've got our organ patch, we've got our Mellotron patch, and we've got our lead synth line, and our Mellotron is switched on with the pedal. We're ready to do the song, just like this. just like that. And it didn't take us hardly any time at all to set that up. And then, of course, we could switch to our next sound. There's another lead sound in the next section, so we could just press a button and have that sound come up, and we don't even have to move out of our multi. So we've covered the sliders. The knobs are the exact same thing. It's just you choose those as your controller instead of the knobs. Switches are exactly the same. Ribbon controller, we can assign that to do all sorts of different kind of things. Our wheels over at the end, pitch and mod wheel. Let's talk about the pads now. So these pads are velocity sensitive, and back out of this, we'll go back to program. By default, they're set up to play chords in program mode. Well, what if you want to change these chords? Those are kind of Steely Dan chords, aren't they? Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. So you can see that they're velocity sensitive. Kind of cool. All right, so if we want to change the chords on them, we're in program mode here, but the same kind of general idea follows in multi mode as well. We go into edit, we go over to common, and now we can see we have our pad control parameter right over here, and we have our pad channel. We're concerned with the pad control right now. It's set to note and chords. We can also set it to trigger the sequencer, the CC sequencer, the arpeggiator, and we can just turn them into basic switches if we want. That will control other parameters. For right now, let's deal with the notes and chords. So where do we go from here? This took me a little bit to figure out. I had to actually read the manual. Oh my God. And it turns out in order to actually edit the chords, we have to press the edit button once again, once we're on the pad and control section here. So we press edit. Now we're into our pad edit, and we can change the velocity mode. We can actually make a steady velocity if we want on every pad. So it doesn't matter how hard we hit them. We can actually change the velocity to actually be per note. So if we set up different notes with different velocities, they'll always trigger at those velocities. That's kind of handy. Right now we'll leave it on auto, which is just means it responds to my playing. And right here we can see the notes that are assigned to the pad. We're on pad 1 through 16. We just change pads by using these same up and down arrows right here, and we can see all the notes that are set, and you can see we can set up to 8 notes per pad. So that first chord is what? It's a G sharp major, right? What if we wanted to add an octave on that? Well, we can just press and hold and add the note just like that. So now there's our note. What if we want to add in something else? Let's add a 7th and a 9th. Now we're getting crazy. So that's how we change the chords for every pad, and we can just go through, cycle the different pads up and down with our arrows here, and add up to 8 notes. It's crazy. Let's do something crazy like this. We'll add a C down here. We'll do another C octave. We'll do a G. We'll do a E sharp. We'll do a C. We'll do a 7th. We'll do a flat 5, and we'll do a 9th. Ooh. Gotta turn that down a little bit. It's overloading my inputs. Isn't that crazy? So there we go. That's how we set the pads to different chords. If we were to do that in multi-mode, so again, go into multi-mode, we got our Lonely Boy. So we need to go into our edit mode. We need to go to controls. We need to find our pads. There's pad 1. I'm just cycling through the zones to make sure nothing's controlled, and they're not. And right now they're in toggle mode, so that's why they were staying on when I press them. Momentary mode, let's do notes, chords on zone 1. Again, we can do the same thing, just set up a random chord. I'm just And we could set the next pad to be on the other zone. That's on that zone, on the string zone. So let's do that. Let's set up pad 2. Pad 2, notes, chords, and we'll just do something real simple. And we got to set it to momentary. And we got to turn on. There we go. That's really cool. Now think about the power of this for a minute, because you could actually load in a bunch of one-shot samples, and you could load in little phrases like from a song, or little horn lines, or something that you can't play because you're doing too many other things, and you can just go boom and trigger them right there from within your multi and not have to worry about it. And again, you can set them to be momentary so that it turns off, or we can set it to be toggled. It's awesome, and it's super powerful. So I'm hoping that gave you a good overview of the controllers of the K2700 and how extremely powerful they can be for your performance. As keyboard players, we are often tasked with covering strings and horns and triggering samples, and then of course playing, you know, all the piano parts and all the organ parts, and we have so many responsibilities, and we only have 2 hands. And this instrument, of course, was developed in order for us to be able to cover all those parts and make the song sound the best that it absolutely can. And of course, none of that would mean anything if the instrument itself didn't sound great, but it's Kurzweil. We all know how great it sounds. The pianos, the electric pianos, the strings, the synth engine is amazing. We'll dig into the synth engine in another video, I think, because the synth engine has alias-free virtual analog oscillators, so you got all your basic wave shapes in there for creating analog-style pads and leads and basses, and it sounds just absolutely amazing. I mean, I don't want to turn this into a video on the sound, but I mean, this stuff... It just sounds great. I mean, what else do you need from that? I mean, you got your classic saws. Got a filter right there, like I said. It's already assigned a filter. Got a chorus amount right here. It just sounds so good. You can just bring this out to the gig. You don't need anything else. That's the whole point. So hopefully this video gave you a good overview of the controller aspect. In the next video, we'll deal with some other things, including triggering samples from the pads. We'll have to load in some samples. I'll show you how to do that. And then we'll get into the analog engine and show what this baby can do. Thanks for watching. I'm Jim Alfredson on behalf of Wiser Sound and Kurzweil Music System. Be safe. We'll see you soon, and keep playing music.